voice from the aching heart. Pump, pump, pump. That's the curse back at you. Shortened bread, shortened bread, shortened bread. Mama's gonna make some shortened bread, shortened bread, shortened bread, shortened bread. Mama's gonna make some shortened bread. Get that wood out of the shed. Oh, mercy, look at there. Boys, mother's gonna make some shortening bread. Two Senegambians laying in bed. One turned over to the open said, fine, 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 fine bread. Serve it, mama, serve it. Say, delivery man, where have you been? Oh, mercy, sure as a sin. Mama, mama, don't be fast. Do not show your big, fine shortening bread. Shortening bread. Shortening bread. Mama gonna make some shortening bread.
All righty. So, I'm going to preface this by saying that it is late. I do have court in the morning, like a trial. I can't just show up. I actually have to, be like all on the ball and everything and make objections and dumb shit like that. So we're going to go over this, and I probably won't have a lot of time. I probably won't go over any of your questions in here. So I did at here. So at here equals YouTube. I don't know what we're talking about. So I did tell everybody in Discord that I was going live. So I have completed my part of the bargain. So this is Earl's opening brief. Now, I just want to be very, 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 very clear. I do not like Earl. I have a long and relatively antagonistic history with Earl. Earl threatened to show up at my house. I threatened to shoot Earl and empty the magazine and keep shooting until the danger had passed. We are not friends. He's filed bar complaints against me. We're not friends. I am, however, interested in justice. Now, I don't know if Earl did or didn't do hanky-pank with his daughter. My inclination is, and always has been, that Earl is a congenital liar. And if Earl says he did something, then he didn't do it. And if he says he didn't do it, then he did it. That's my inclination. That's my starting point. That said, I am even more interested in justice, not getting the guy I don't like. I don't like Earl, but I don't want him to go to jail or prison for something he didn't do. It's fine if he goes to prison for something he did. I would rejoice in it. But if he didn't do it, then I'm going to tell you that. So when I'm looking at this, my personal bias against Earl is not going to come into play. When I looked at the original motion for reconsideration done by Earl's attorney, it was a good motion for reconsideration. And if true, true, then I think that Earl had good grounds for a new trial. If true. People seem to miss that if true. I was not there. I am not the jury. I did not see the evidence presented. I don't know what the evidence is. I have glanced at some of this. He is going to go over some of the testimony that was given. I can't judge credibility from what they say here. But if true, he has a good shot at an appeal. Now we're going to go over the appeal. I have not read the full appeal. I don't know if his appellate attorney seals the deal on this one or not. But I'll tell you what, at the oral arguments, the appellate attorney crushed the state's attorney, crushed the county DA, and the judge didn't know his asshole from his fucking elbow. But that's my take. And it's not because I like Earl, and it's not because I favor Earl. I don't like him. I don't favor him. If he shows up at my door, I will shoot him. He is a felon. He's a rapist, and he has threatened me and my family. I will fucking shoot him if he shows up at my door. We're not friends. I can't make that any more clear. So with that said, we're going to go through this. And if anybody can't handle this and they think, well, Earl's fucking guilty, then this isn't the stream for you. This stream is going to be to look at what the defense, what Earl's team is putting forward to the Court of Appeals to see what the Court of Appeals thinks. And at the end of this, what could possibly happen is not that Earl is going to be is not that he's going to be freed. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that what will likely happen if Earl prevails, and again, we haven't seen everything yet. I haven't seen most of the appeal yet. It's 78 pages long. I've only taken a glance at the first 5 pages. But this is only part of what the Court of Appeals is going to see. The Court of Appeals is going to see the full record with the transcripts, the actual court reporters' transcripts, the clerk's transcripts. They're going to see all of that stuff. They're going to see the respondent's opening brief. I'm assuming that Texas is going to allow the petitioner, the appellant, to have an appellant's reply brief. I'm assuming. So there's still some more shit that's going to go down here. What I've seen so far is I've seen Earl's side present a good argument that if true means that Earl got fucked. That's what I've seen so far. So we're going to see if this appeal continues that tradition. So they're requesting oral argument. That's going to be interesting. I hope that's streamed, because I would be interested in watching it. I love a good index and everything like that. The state's brief is due on or before Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. Well, they might also get extensions. We don't know. I do, by the way, WTT was the one who graciously supplied me with this. So thank you, WTT, for this. I don't care what everybody else says. You're not entirely bad. Statement of the case. Worden was charged by indictment with the offense of sexual assault on a child alleged to have been committed on or about January 1st, 1997. CR is probably the clerk's record. The clerk's record is going to be the paperwork that was done. There's probably going to be a reporter's transcript. Here they go. They go RR. So this is going to be the reporter's record. And that's going to be the transcripts of all the hearings. So CR is going to be the paperwork. RR is going to be the transcripts of the oral arguments. A pretrial hearing was held in the case on February 9th, 2022, addressing the admissibility of Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 38.37, extraneous offense evidence, at which the state presented a singular alleged act that the court determined was inadmissible. Court's record at 234. Extraneous offense evidence is basically something along the lines of, like, it'll show kind of the propensity that you have for doing the thing that you did. It's not the thing, but it's something very similar to the thing. And oftentimes it is very prejudicial and they don't allow it in because it is more prejudicial than probative, i.e., it's more likely to get people all worked up and dislike the defendant more than it's going to allow people to accurately judge whether or not the defendant is guilty of the crime he is actually being charged with in the instant case. Worden entered a not guilty plea, and his jury trial began on December 12, 2022. After a 3-day trial, the jury reached a guilty verdict on December 15, 2022, and the parties reached an agreement as to a 20-year sentence that would waive appeal of the sentencing portion of trial, but preserve the ability to appeal matters from guilt innocence. The court orally pronounced sentence on December 15, 2022, and entered a written judgment on that date. Worden filed a motion for new trial on January 17, 2023, and presented the motion on January 26, 2023. On February 22, 2023, the court denied Worden's motion for a new trial. Worden filed his notice of appeal February 20th, 2023. Issues presented. 1. The trial court erred in admitting the extraneous offense evidence, as trial counsel did not open the door to such evidence, and if he did, the admitted extraneous offenses did not fit within the open door. So sometimes the defense counsel can open the door to certain things by asking certain questions that kind of require the witness to start talking about these other things. And what he's saying here is that defense counsel didn't do that. He didn't broach any of those subjects. And if he did, then the subjects he broached didn't actually require them to go into the open door. Number 2, the trial court erred in admitting the extraneous offense evidence in violation of Texas Rules of Evidence 403. I'm assuming they'll go over that. We might have to open that up, but I'm going to try to get through this a little faster today. Trial counsel's opening the door to prejudicial extraneous offense evidence constituted ineffective assistance of counsel. So he's kind of arguing various things that seem to be like alternatives. Like he didn't open it, but if he did, he didn't do it, or he didn't do it for that specific evidence. And if he did do it, then it was ineffective assistance of counsel. These seem to be all kind of in the alternative stuff. 4, the trial court erred in admitting the improper opinion testimony of Detective Reed, a child sex abuse investigator and expert who opined the complainant was credible. Determinations of credibility are generally left to the jury, so I don't know why the trial court would have allowed Detective Reed to opine someone was credible. The repeated outside influences brought to bear on the jury and juror misconduct violated Worden's right to a jury trial. I don't think it matters, by the way. I know a lot of people think that that because Worden's side did stuff, then it's Worden's fault. I don't think that anybody anywhere has shown that Worden actually coordinated any of that, and I doubt Worden would have. I mean, he might be that stupid. I don't think Earl is stupid. He's not the smartest guy in the world, but he's not stupid. He's a liar. He's a rapist, but he's not stupid. He's not really smart, but he's not stupid. The trial court erred in denying Worden's motion for a new trial, as the court improperly considered juror deliberations when analyzing the outside influence and juror misconduct claim. I think that is an excellent point, and I agree. After having read the transcript, I think that the court did. The court should not have considered the juror deliberations. It should have been what a random reasonable juror would have done, not what this specific jury did. The trial court's remark, an improper opinion that jurors heard about, quote, 25 years of a dysfunctional family at best, end quote, violated Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 38.05. Okay. This is 8. The trial court's remark and improper opinion that jurors heard about. Oh, so two things. It also violated his right to due process. 9, the state's injection of racial and religious animus and stereotyping into the trial violated the First and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution and ineffective assistance of counsel. I think that was really fucked up that they painted him to be a racist. Something about his wife had an affair with a black guy or something, and he didn't want the half black kid and there were black people on the jury, and just yada yada yada. I mean, it's yeah. And then cumulative harm, i.e., all those things taken together did cumulative harm. Statement of facts. General background. Worden was charged with the offense of sexual assault on a child allegedly committed on or about January 1, 1997. The complainant, Brandy Worden. Brandy is Worden's daughter with his estranged wife, Sharon Worden. Sharon. The couple had 6 kids, including Brandy and her sisters, Jessica, Sarah, Gina, and Amanda, and her brother, Earl David Worden Jr. David. Brandy claimed Worden sexually assaulted her for 2 years, almost nightly, but did not report the abuse to law enforcement until 2018, and only then, after Detective Reed contacted her while investigating Worden for another matter related to a shell refinery. Though it did not come out in the guilt-innocence portion of the trial, Worden is a well-known police accountability publisher with a substantial fan base. Had a substantial fan base. I don't think he has that substantial fan base anymore. He also has many active anti-fans who publish disparaging material about Worden on the internet. Disparaging, but not defamatory, because most of it's true. Several fans and anti-fans attended the trial, which became an issue with respect to juror influence, as discussed in section D1 infra. Infra means below. This isn't an opinion, a popularity contest, by the way. So, I don't really care what your opinion is about Earl, and free him or not free him. This isn't about that. This isn't a popularity context. So just cool your tits, relax. Let's see what the actual arguments are. The Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 38.37 hearing. The court held a pre-trial 3837 hearing related to alleged extraneous offenses or acts and informed the parties, to which both agreed that the court's ruling in that hearing would be final for 3837 extraneous offense purposes. During the hearing, the state singularly presented the testimony of Cheyenne Steele, also known as Ashley Moorer, Worden's daughter from a separate relationship, who alleged Worden inappropriately touched her. That's bad. The court excluded the testimony from Worden's trial, finding the allegations remote, not credible, and that there was substantial evidence to rebut or call into question that extraneous offense under 403 grounds. So the court did not believe Ashley Moore. Which, okay. So take that. I don't think the court is pro Earl. I don't think the court is pro Earl. So if the court didn't find this witness credible, then maybe, the court ended up finding Earl guilty, right? Or no problems with denying the motion for reconsideration. I don't think the court is on Earl's team. So if the court found this gal to not be credible, probably not very credible. The trial, number 1. Opening statements. During opening statements, defense counsel told the jury this case would come down to credibility and that there were 3 reasons Brandy's allegation was not credible. Number 1, it was not possible in a trailer with 7 other people for sexual abuse to happen almost every night for 2 years without any other person in the house ever noticing. Seven people lived in a trailer. God damn, I know Earl likes trailers, but 7 people? Where would they all sleep? Christ, that sucks, dude. That's rough. The story changed drastically from the original story 22 years earlier. And there was a benefit to Brandy for the original story, as she was able to move to her grandmother's trailer. What is it with the Wardens and trailers? Enabling her to see her boyfriend outside of the supervision of her parents, with a footnote. The, quote, original story, end quote, was not an allegation of sexual assault, but alleged touching or attempted touching of Brandy's breasts, and which allegedly took place when Brandy was over 17, no longer a child, under Texas Penal Code Article 22.011. As such, this alleged act was extraneous to the charged offense and could not support the conviction either factually or legally. Okay. That sounds like a reasonable legal interpretation. The defense opening statement became a point of contention throughout the trial, as the state argued the defense counsel's argument opened the door to extraneous evidence, as discussed in section C3 infra. Infra means below. I don't know if I said that before. So what one of those three things opened the door? Interesting. I guess we'll have to find out. It's like a cliffhanger. The state's case in chief, part 1. Detective Reed. Detective Reed, a child abuse and sex crimes detective with the Deer Park Police Department, testified he was investigating Worden for another matter when his investigation into this case began. You know, that is a little bit weird. That they would have a child abuse and sex crimes detective investigate the Shell refinery threats. I wonder why. I do wonder why they put him on there, but it seems like, that whole thing where, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, if you're a child abuse and sex crimes detective, you're probably more likely to find child abuse and sex crimes than maybe someone else would have, like a just normal detective would have. You know what I mean? Like if that's what your job is, you're going to look for it a little harder. You might find it where it's not there a little bit more. I don't know. But it is interesting that Earl said that they kind of went and kind of manufactured this. And now it turns out that this Detective Reed is a child abuse and sex crimes detective. That sounds like that's his job. Like, so why was he on this case? Why was he investigating Worden for another matter? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Unless it's a small department or whatever, and they have their child abuse and sex crimes detective work on other kinds of cases. Reed's investigations involve interviewing witnesses and collecting various records that might corroborate a person's allegations of sexual abuse. Reed interviewed the following Worden family members: Brandy, Sharon, Jessica, Gina, and Sonia Bauman, Worden's niece. Reed testified over defense counsel's objection that he found Brandy credible based on her emotions and reactions through his interviews. Again, generally speaking, see, you're fucking stupid. They did not have the word out on the streets about Earl's crimes. He had been arrested for rape. That was back in the 80s. So no, they don't just throw like, oh, this guy's threatening to blow up a Shell refinery. They're like, oh, well, he was a rapist in the past, like 30, 40 years ago. So let's throw a sex crimes detective on it. No, see, it's fucking dimwits like you who ruin shit for everyone else with your stupid fucked up theories. Like you're dumb and you should be gone. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. Reed gathered school records and determined the Worden family lived at the Kings Row Trailer Park. The Kings Row Trailer Park. Talk about trying to church it up. The Kings Row Trailer Park. This is the highfalutin trailer park right here. And they lived there from January of 1996 through December of 1998. So that's 1 year, 2 years, almost 3 years. So they lived there almost 3 years. Reed conducted 2 recorded interviews with Brandy, and she told him the abuse was nightly, occurring every night for 2 years. Quote, she said every night, so nightly. Yes, sir. That is they're probably quoting Reed from the trial. Reed probably said, that at the trial, not Brandy. They're probably quoting Reed. Reed found virtually nothing to corroborate Brandy's allegations. Virtually nothing. So he found something. He fucking found something. Reed found virtually nothing to corroborate Brandy's allegations. No police reports, no CPS records. I thought there were CPS records. Why do I remember that this had been reported that this was corroborated with CPS? It's been a long time. All right. So no police reports, no CPS records, no forensic interviews. I thought, wasn't there the interview with Earl? The detective was like, yeah, so there was this ongoing investigation. We found it on a back shelf. So there was something. There was, and Earl had been investigated, and he said something like he had done a lie detector test and he passed it. Yeah, polygraph. Thank you. I'm fucking. There was so. So no police. That's so. I wonder what the fuck was going on. I wonder what they were investigating if it wasn't this. Because he said that the cop said there was something. That there was a open investigation. It was a file. It was never closed. They found it on a shelf when they started digging into him for the shell stuff. And that's what brought all this to his attention. And that's why they started looking into these allegations from Brandy. So, So found virtually no police. That's so interesting. Okay. Well, okay. So maybe Brandy had made other allegations of the breast touching. There we go. Maybe it was the breast touching when she was over 17. Maybe that's what they found. I don't know. So no medical records, no therapy records, and no support group records. Reed found that the school records corroborated that she lived in the Kings Road Trailer Park and that her grades remained high throughout high school. Reed's interviews revealed that no one had heard Brandy's current story of abuse prior to this investigation, but rather she always told a different story that dealt with a boyfriend and a dispute with Worden. Sharon Worden complained that Brandy's mother testified the family was poor and that she and Worden were not good parents. Well, I don't think we needed her to testify to figure that out. Sharon cleaned buildings and it would take Brandy or Jessica. The family moved into the Kings Row Trailer Park in early 1996, and the trailer home had trailer home. So it's like yeah, okay. So it's like one of the big ones. We call those mobile homes, I think. Not trailer homes. All right, 4 bedrooms. Okay. All right. A master bedroom, 3 bedrooms. The 6 children split evenly, 2 in each room. Within 2 or 3 years after moving in, Brandy got her own room. Within 2 or 3 years after moving in, Brandy got her own room. Moved in January of 1996. 2 years later would have been January of 1998. 3 years would be January of 1999, but they were out by December. So it had to be 2 years or less. Right? Am I less than 3 years. It had to be within 2 up to 3 years. Well, if she got a room right before they moved out, I don't know. I don't understand that. The trailer had maybe it'll be clear later. The trailer had a living room where the floor was messed up that could not be safely used. Nice. The doors did not have locks anywhere in the house. Maybe the internal doors didn't have locks. I'm sure the external doors would have locks. That'd be weird and crazy. Maybe Earl bought the drill with one of those big what do they call those drill bits, so that he could drill hole thingies for locks to put in. Yeah, yeah. And he just kept accidentally putting him into the bathroom. I don't know. So again, I don't know if that allegation is true. So let's continue on. Sharon observed that Brandy became distant to her and Worden, natural for teenagers, started working and being independent, and liked a guy that lived in the trailer park. You know, young love, you fall in love with a guy from the trailer park. What could go wrong with falling in love with a guy from the trailer park? She's an uptown girl. Okay, glory holes. Nice, John. Because the guy was older, this caused arguments, and Brandy was crazy about him. That is a weird fucking sentence. That's a weird sentence, but okay. One day, Sharon came home to find Brandy upset, crying hysterically and hyperventilating. All the children at Worden were present. Sharon testified that Brandy claimed Worden held her down and was touching her, I'm assuming Brandy's, breasts. Sharon confronted Worden, who denied the claim, and said Brandy was upset because they had just had a fight about the boyfriend again. Sharon did not call the police or CPS and did not make Worden move out of the home. Instead, Sharon asked Brandy if she wanted to go live with her grandmother, who lived in the back of the same trailer park, and Brandy agreed and moved. It's convenient. It's convenient when your grandmother lives at the back of the trailer park. So far, I'm only hearing questions of fact decided by a jury verdict. Yeah, he is laying out the facts. Now, I don't know exactly where he's going with this yet, but he's laying out facts. He didn't say that the jury verdict was not supported by substantial evidence or anything like that. So I don't know exactly where he's going with it, but I agree. I'm hearing. It's interesting stuff because this is all cited to the transcripts, the court's record, but I don't know how far it's going to get him because despite all of this testimony that supports Earl, he's obviously not putting in the testimony that damns Earl. So just keep that in mind. But this is interesting stuff. Sharon did not dispute. She told Detective Reed 3 times in 2018 that Brandy only said that Worden was trying to touch her chest, an inconsistency that Detective Reed later confirmed. Except for that incident, Sharon stated that Baby never alleged any other abuse. Brandy never told Sharon about any other alleged abuse for over the next 15 years until Detective Reed's investigation. Sharon identified that Brandy is very outspoken and tells people what she is thinking and is not one to sit by and let someone do something to her. I mean, Mom could have a different memory of it than Brandy did. Brandy could have been upset with Mom because Mom didn't make Worden move out of the house, and she might have felt betrayed that Mom took Earl's side over Brandy's, and that's why Brandy didn't go and keep yammering to her. I told you once, I'm not going to tell you again, kind of thing. Maybe. Brandy Worden. Brandy discussed her family lived in poor conditions and moved a lot during her childhood. Brandy discussed or testified. I don't know. Brandy stated the children were taken into CPS custody when she was 12 because the school reported concerns that the children appeared dirty and skinny. Quality parenting. Brandy confirmed that they were eating, but stated she and her siblings were not well cared for. When Shannon got a better apartment, Brandy and her siblings moved back with Sharon. I don't know what year that is. During that time, Worden had moved away from the family and was dating a woman named Ann Moore. At some point, Sharon was impregnated by a man other than Worden, and the children moved to live with Worden and his girlfriend, Ann. Brandy testified Ann was a Mormon, and Ann's family tried to get them to convert to Mormonism. Brandy testified that during this time, her father began looking at her differently, acting kind of creepy sometimes, making her feel weird, and that it didn't feel normal. Over defense counsel's objection, Brandy claimed that her father tried to convince Brandy to convert to Mormonism with arguments that fathers can marry their own daughters in Mormonism. I don't even know if that's a thing. Is that a thing? Like, I've probably asked that before, but I've never heard that Mormons can marry their own daughters. I've never heard that. So that's an interesting argument to make, I guess. In January of 1996, Worden and the children moved into the Kings Row trailer he purchased for the family. Big spender. Brandy claimed, with no objection from defense counsel, that Sharon was not living with the family because they were hiding her pregnancy from the children, and that Worden refused to raise a child because it was half black. The state also introduced a picture of Brandy and her friend LaToya, a young black girl. Why would you produce a picture of Brandy and her friend LaToya, a young black girl? And I thought Sharon lived with them. So did Sharon move in early 1996? I don't fucking get it. Brandy described that the trailer was not nice, had a roach infestation, no air condition except in the master bedroom, and a missing floor in the living room. The home had 4 bedrooms, and Brandy identified each of the rooms, who was sharing each bedroom, and drew a map of the home. Brandy first shared a room with Jessica. Sonia helped get the children beds from gallery furniture, and Brandy was excited because it was so rare for them to have their own individual beds. Brandy began working at a Walmart after she turned 16, which would have been in February of 1997, citing that she wanted to gain her independence and move out of the house. Brandy also worked with her mother cleaning buildings at night, and they would begin cleaning when Brandy finished her Walmart shift at 11 p.m. After Brandy began working at Walmart and was helping to pay bills, the family decided she should have her own room mine. She must have identified the room as room mine on the map she drew. Brandy claimed Worden would do things to make her uncomfortable, acting like he was tickling or playing, but groping her breasts or other body parts. If she was wearing a skirt or dress, would make her bend over and put his hand up her skirt and grope, and would do a Texas titty twister, pinching and twisting a nipple. She said this began when she was around 14 years old. So she turned 16 in February of 1997. So she was 15 in February of 1996. So she was 14 in February of 1995. So before they moved into the Kings Row trailer park, when they were living when they were living with Worden and his girlfriend Anne, is when it allegedly started. Brandy claimed that she started waking up in the middle of the night, finding her clothes disheveled, her door opening, or seeing him walk out of her room. Brandy said this started when she got her own room, which, according to earlier testimony, was not until after February of 1997. What happened? What happened when she was 14? Oh, it was just titty twisters. Just. I didn't mean just. I meant it wasn't penetration, which is what he was charged with. She claimed that the first time she recalled waking up to him, she was between 16 and 17, and she woke up to his hand in her panties and he was placing his finger in her vagina. She claimed this happened a lot, that she kept knives hidden in her room, and that her father took her lock away from her door. I thought the doors didn't have locks. I'm lost. There's a lot of confusion going on. Now, I'm not saying that anybody's lying. I don't know, right? And a lot of time passed from, let's say, 1997 to 2023, right? That's a lot of time. 26 years or so. Well, there was prior testimony that there were no locks on the door. So none of the doors had locks. Brandy said this continued until after she moved out and that she tried not to sleep. Well, if she's working cleaning, if she goes to Walmart to work after school and then at 11 o'clock when she gets off of work, she goes and cleans with her mom, she probably doesn't get much sleep, period. Brandy testified that on the day she moved out of the trailer, Sharon was at the grocery store and that all her siblings were in the living room, the one that didn't have a floor, apparently, watching television. Earl can't keep his life straight, even when written down. That is a correct statement of fact. However, none of this is Earl's lies. All of this is testimony from other people. So you're not wrong, but you're not on topic. And I get it that everybody wants to put Earl down, but this, again, not the right place, not the right space for it. We're looking at a legal brief. So please try to keep your bias to yourself. So Sharon was at the grocery stores. All the siblings were in the living room watching TV. Brandy stated Worden found out she was seeing a guy that she normally was not allowed to date. Brandy claimed Worden told her she could date the guy provided she give Worden her virginity. Brandy claimed he tried to make her have sex with him. So all the siblings were at home. Brandy claimed he tried to make her have sex with him, fondling her and trying to take off her clothes, but then she was able to fight him off and go into the kitchen and grab a knife. Well, 16 or 17-year-old girls fighting off 30-ish-year-old men. I mean, I guess it's possible. Brandy testified she threatened to kill him, then took her siblings and went to her room, closing the door and warning him not to come in. So all the kids must have seen this, so they're going to testify about all this, right? Brandy stated she told Sharon about the incident and that Brandy took her stuff and went to her grandmother's house. She claimed she told her grandmother, but her grandmother did nothing. Brandy did not call the police. Brandy claimed that when she was 23, she went to a women's center in Alvin, Texas, that focused on helping abuse victims. She stated that she disclosed the sexual abuse, but that the women's center refused to help her because it was too old. That'd be a very short statute of limitations. If it happened when she was 17 to 23, 7 years, that's a pretty short statute of limitations, but okay. Brandy claims she also told her cousin Sonia about the sexual abuse and that she always looked to Sonia as a mother figure because Sonia would always try to help her. In 2017, Detective Reed contacted Brandy stating he was investigating her father. Brandy claimed Detective Reed told her that the statute of limitations changed and that she might fall under the new statute of limitations. On cross-examination, Brandy admitted that when her parents and siblings were home, the living arrangements were tight and the walls to the home were thin. Brandy acknowledged that the family moved into the home in January of 1996 and that she told Detective Reed that the sexual abuse involving her father coming into her room started, quote, fairly soon after we moved in there, end quote, and continued until she moved out of the trailer. She acknowledged that she shared a room with Jessica until at least February of 1997 when she got her job. Brandy acknowledged that she maintained A's and B's in school despite her working at Walmart until 11 p.m., cleaning buildings after that, and going home to where she said she wouldn't sleep because of the alleged abuse with her father. Brandy stated that she never tried reporting the abuse to the police, but that she did report it to an advocacy group and to a therapist. Under Texas law, a therapist would have a legal duty to report such abuse. I think most states have mandatory reporting for child abuse from health providers, and a therapist would be a health provider. Brandy stated she also told Detective Reed all this information. Brandy stated the abuse, quote, happened frequently. I'm not going to say almost every night, end quote. When confronted with her prior inconsistent statement to Detective Reed, Brandy stated that she did not remember telling Reed the abuse happened almost every night. However, defense counsel had a transcript of Reed's recorded interviews with Brandy, and she was forced to admit that she told the abuse happened pretty much every night. When pressed for a number, Brandy estimated the abuse happened approximately 150 times per year for the 2 years. Well, I want to remind everybody that once is too many times. I think he's trying to attack her credibility here. I'm not entirely sure, but once assaulting a minor sexually one time is one time too many. So, I mean, does it really matter if it happened 365 times or 150 times a year? I don't think it does. Brandy gave another inconsistent statement regarding when the abuse began, stating it only started after she had her own room, which happened after February 1997, over a year after the family moved into the trailer. This was contrasted with her previous statement that the sexual abuse, quote, started fairly soon after we moved in there, end quote. Well, I mean, it was 20 some odd years ago, so maybe it seemed like it happened fairly soon. Like, how soon is fairly soon? I don't know. Brandy claimed she told Sharon about the abuse on the same day she moved out of the trailer, a statement contradicted by Sharon. But maybe they believe Brandy and not Sharon. Who knows? Brandy also claimed she told Jessica and Sonia and that she was vocal to two people as to why she did not speak to Worden. Brandy denied that she ever told Sonia, the woman she identified as her mother figure, that, quote, David Worden never molested me. Number 3, hearing on extraneous offenses / the open door. I believe they're required to report child abuse. So if you go to, like, if you turn 17, so it's no longer child sexual assault, and you say, hey, my dad Earl stuck his finger in my vajayjay last year, they would still have to report that because that is what they have to report. I don't think it goes away just because the victim turned 17 or 18. I'm almost positive that it doesn't. I'm 99% sure. So the court recessed during Brandy's testimony to discuss whether defense counsel's opening statement opened the door to rebuttal extraneous matters. The state and the court contended that the defense counsel opened the door, claiming defense counsel argued there are 3 reasons she's not to be believed. Too many kids in the same house, in the same bed together, the whole thing has to be made up. So the court contended it too. Interesting. Or at least that's what he's saying. I wonder if there was a transcript. I wonder if there's a transcript in there. In chambers. Because he said it's in chambers, right? Oh, they didn't do it in chambers. They did it in open court. They just recessed the jury. Okay. The state argued defense counsel focused on, quote, fabrication, opportunity, and ellipses, like some retaliation with the notice for wanting to move in with the grandmother and to be closer to the boyfriend, end quote. Defense counsel argued that he did not open the door to any rebuttal extraneous matter, saying, quote, I did not say that this current story changed or was false. I'm sorry. I didn't say a reason why the current story was invented. I said, here's the reason for the original story, which he's not on trial for. As discussed in footnote 1, the original story was the knife incident on the day that Brandy moved out of the home, which allegedly took place when Brandy was over 17, no longer a child, yada yada, which did not involve any sexual assault and which could not support a conviction under this indictment, either factually or legally. Defense counsel further stated, I've not intended to open the door to the extent that I have, and it's harmful to my client. To the extent that I have, and it's harmful to my client. I'll admit that later. I just want that to be clear. The state similarly acknowledged we were reassured several times by defense counsel that he would not be opening the door. This is consistent with defense counsel's statement just before jury selection. I'll put on the record, I doubt we're going to be opening the door of anything, and I don't intend to. Outside of the presence of the jury, the state presented the testimony it sought to introduce through the open door. The state argued that all these incidences fit within the open door, contending they rebutted the argument Brandy was fabricating, and it would have been impossible given the layout of the trailer and the number of people that were living in the household at the time. And the defense counsel had put into the minds of the jurors that Brandy had a motive to fabricate these allegations because she wanted to get out of the residence and move in with her grandmother to continue her relationship with her boyfriend. The defense countered the state initially brought up the boyfriend in its opening statement. He was permitted to respond to it without opening the door, and additionally, that almost all of the state's desired extraneous evidence took place in front of other people in the small trailer, bolstering the defensive theory that about 300 alleged incidents of abuse would have been seen by someone rather than rebutting it. Additionally, defense counsel argued that the multiple contradictions and changes in stories showed that the extraneous evidence could not be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and that Texas Evidence Code 403 considerations mandated keeping the evidence out. The court overruled defense counsel's objections and admitted certain extraneous evidence described below. So this is the extraneous evidence that the court allowed to be admitted. Following the hearing on opening the door issue, the trial continued, and the state recalled Brandy, who testified she witnessed Jessica being abused, which Jessica denied, groping, touching, making her bend over and put his hand up her skirts. On cross-examination, Brandy stated she cannot confirm whether she told any of these details to Detective Reed. I don't know why the court would have allowed that. What they're saying is what the defense is, or what the state is saying is, well, other people did hear it. Brandy heard Jessica or witnessed Jessica being abused. So in a small trailer, yes, we would have seen Earl abusing other people, and Brandy saw someone else being abused. But Jessica, but if you don't believe Brandy already, I don't know why that would help. Jessica. All right. So this is the, is this Jessica? All right. Jessica testified Worden touched her leg mid-thigh while she was driving, telling her when to press the pedals of the standard transmission car. I mean, okay. Okay. Like, Jessica testified that she was scared to use the restroom in the home because during the years that she lived there, her father walked in on her 2 or 3 times while she was using the restroom and said, quote, "Oh, I'm sorry," and immediately walked out. Like, like, why couldn't any dumb motherfucker there like buy a lock or something, bro? Buy a fucking lock, like a little, like just a cheapy lock to put on the bathroom door, or even like a stick to like prevent the door from being opened or something. Jessica claimed that because of this, she stopped using the restroom altogether and started peeing in a pile of clothes in the closet. Oh my mother of God. Or shove a shoe under a door, or get one of those like little like, you know, occupied signs hanging on the door handle when you go in there. Something is better than fucking peeing on piles of clothes in the closet. And what if she had to like drop a deuce? Like, what does she do? Like, just go out in the garden or some shit? Are you gonna count my subs too, firefighter? You gonna count my subs too? I don't have a lot. Maybe you should start counting them. But holy shit! Like, why did she have to start peeing on? So her allegations. Again. By the way, this is just the defense's version of the trial. We haven't seen everything that the prosecution put in, but Jessica testified that Worden touched her leg mid-thigh while she was driving, telling her when to press the pedals of the standard transmission car, and that in the 2 to 3 years that she lived in that Kings Row trailer, Earl walked in on the bathroom 2 or 3 times, like once approximately a year, said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and immediately walked out. And ergo, because of that, like what? Like, I walked into the bathroom accidentally on people when they forgot to lock the door or whatever. You know, it happens. And you're like, "Oh, sorry," and you walk out. And then you're like, "Oh man, like, whoo, I shouldn't have walked into that." Like, I don't even fucking understand. Jessica also testified that one night she was called to her parents' bedroom and Worden told her how to masturbate with a Coke bottle, and that her mother was sitting on the edge of the bed during this conversation. That's a little spicier. Talk about burying the lead. Why'd he start with touching the leg mid-thigh and then walking into the bathroom and then work their way down to Worden telling her how to masturbate with a Coke bottle? But now let's pause and put our now that there's been the emotional reaction to it. Is this like a birds and bees discussion? Because the mother was sitting right there. I mean, is this a birds and the bee? Yeah, like, he's not saying here, you know, masturbate with this Coke bottle. You may be saying like, "Hey, instead of having sex, you can use a toy or something." I don't know. Like, don't fuck around with dudes in the trailer park, because if you get pregnant by a trailer park dude, you're going to be living in a trailer in the trailer park that doesn't have a fucking floor in the living room. Jessica claimed that because of these incidences, she would stay up all night reading and peeing into clothes piles on cross-examination. Jessica admitted she previously told Detective Reed that Worden walked in on her while she was taking showers, not while using the restroom. That's what but did she say that she wasn't taking showers? I don't know. Jessica contradicted Brandy's earlier testimony and stated that she did not remember wearing any skirts. Maybe they were all soaked with piss in her closet. Also contradicting Brandy, Jessica stated that Worden never touched her inappropriately. In recounting the day Brandy moved out, Jessica said she was at work with Sharon when the incident started, not at the grocery store, as Brandy claimed. Brandy was again contradicted when Jessica said that she and her mother arrived home, and Brandy told them she was hiding in the bathroom and not in Brandy's own bedroom, as Brandy claimed. Brandy was further contradicted as Jessica stated Brandy was in Jessica's room. As Jessica stated Brandy was in Jessica's room when they arrived home. These seem contradictory. We don't allow sweet tea in here. Sweet tea is diabetes. Brandy was contradicted again when Jessica stated that she and her mother arrived home, and Brandy told them she was hiding in the bathroom. Brandy was further contradicted as Jessica stated Brandy was in Jessica's room when they arrived home. So did Brandy call out from Jessica's room, "I'm hiding in the bathroom"? How does that work? Finally, Jessica recalled that Brandy told her that Worden said this is what boys could do to her and felt under her clothing, not the story Brandy told the jury. Jessica admitted that despite her staying up all night, she never saw Worden going into Brandy's bedroom at night, and that she would have told Detective Reed if she had. This is Gianna. I'm going to say Gina. I'm going to say Gina. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Gina. Gina testified about the day that Brandy moved out, stating that she was watching television with Amanda and when she saw reflections on the screen. Gina recalled Brandy was freaking out, yelling, crying, screaming, and was holding a knife. Gina stated Worden was trying to calm her down, contradicting Brandy. Gina said she went back to watching her show and that Brandy moved out that day. Whitney Croson. Dr. Croson is a staff psychologist at the Children's Assessment Center, and her testimony focused on the concept of partial versus full disclosures, outcries, barriers of disclosures, and facilitators. She also discussed dissociation, wherein a person who has experienced sustained trauma develops a way of coping where they drift away mentally during a traumatic event while their body is physically present. On cross-examination, Dr. Croson admitted she knew nothing about this case, that the dynamics could change when a person gets older with respect to disclosures and barriers, and that facilitators would make it more likely that a person would disclose abuse. Dr. Croson recognized that abuse advocacy groups help perceived victims get access to resources. Okay. I don't know what the point of that was. The defense case in chief, Mark Kluver. Mark is Sonia's former husband and had once visited the trailer where Worden and his children lived, dropping off the bed Sonia purchased for the kids. Sonia was the cousin, right? Sonia was the cousin, right? Sonia Bauman, Worden's niece. Okay. Mark recalled that Brandy lived with him and Sonia for 1 year, that he knew her well and helped her get a job. Mark's opinion was Brandy is untruthful. I mean, that's just like your opinion, man. Detective Reed. Detective Reed was the defense's case in chief. That's interesting. Detective Reed was recalled and confirmed 3 points from his recorded interviews that contradicted Sharon's earlier testimony. Number one, she told him that she and David went to Walmart to try to catch Brandy having lunch with a boyfriend. And two, Brandy told her that Mr. Worden had tried to touch her breasts on the date of the incident in which Brandy moved out. And three, that Brandy's boyfriend was like 25 years old at the time. Detective Reed confirmed several points that contradicted Brandy's early testimony. Number one, she told him multiple times the abuse was either every night or almost every night. Two, she said it started every night when she was 14 years old, not 16. Three, he never told Brandy that there was some change in the statute of limitations. Four, she never mentioned Worden put his hand up her skirt. And five, she never mentioned that she keeps knives in her pillow. That is that's dangerous, man. C, Sonia Bowman. Sonia and Brandy were close over the years, and Sonia was familiar with the trailer house, which was nasty inside. Nasty. Sonia put together a donation drive to get beds for all the children. Sonia heard of the allegation made against Worden on the day Brandy moved out of the trailer home, recalling it was based on the boyfriend Brandy had, and an allegation Worden said she should not, or an allegation Worden said she should give her virginity to him if she was going to have that boyfriend. Sonia contradicted Brandy and said Brandy never told her that Worden abused her every night. Rather, Sonia recalled that Brandy explicitly told her the opposite, that her father never sexually molested her. Sonia contradicted Brandy's earlier testimony that Sonia had stopped talking to Brandy based on this case. Sonia said that she was no longer talking to Brandy because she learned that Brandy and a woman named Teresa were plotting to try to get Sonia's daughter kicked out of college and her son from the Navy. Yeah, I'm sure that the smell of the pissed-on piles of clothes in closets probably did not make for a pleasant living situation. But that's kind of weird. Like, Sonia said that she's no longer talking to Brandy because she learned that Brandy and a woman named Teresa. Oh, Teresa Richard. Is Teresa trying to get Sonia's daughter kicked out of college and her son kicked out of the Navy? Would Teresa Richard do that? Because Teresa Richard was a scorned and bitter woman. She would never, Teresa Richard would never do that. I am just imagining that that's something that Teresa Richard would do. But why would Brandy want to get Sonia's daughter kicked out of college and Sonia's son kicked out of the Navy? Messy. All right, this is David. This is Earl's son. David discussed the layout and character of the home and described that he slept on the couch, which was a straight shot into the hallway of the other rooms. The hallways were well lit, and David, a light sleeper, never saw Worden leaving his bedroom in the middle of the night to go into Brandy's room. The trailer would creak when people would walk around. David contradicted Brandy's claim that Worden would walk around the house in boxer shorts and said they were gym shorts, but that the style was that they were too short. For guys back then. I can imagine Earl walking around in like 1980s gym shorts. David also described that when Worden taught him how to drive a standard, he would touch his knees, showing which pedal to press until David got the hang of it. I mean, you got to, if you're gonna teach your son how to steal cars, he needs to be able to drive a standard transmission. Finally, David contradicted Brandy's claim about the knife incident on the day she moved out, recalling they were playing around before she later got upset, contradicting her claim that they were all in the room with Brandy. David recalled that while he was eating ice cream, Worden and Brandy began arguing about a guy named Jose. No way, Jose. And that she was cleaning her nails with a steak knife on the couch. Richardson, that's exactly it. Ugh. All right. David remembers that when Sharon came home, Brandy was crying to Sharon that Dad touched my titty. Sharon became angry and they went in the room for 10 minutes, came out, and Brandy moved out. Closing arguments. During closing arguments, the state relied heavily on the extraneous evidence, discussing those extraneous allegations presented by Brandy, Jessica, and Gina in rebuttal to the open door. The state also injected racial animus and religious stereotyping into the trial when the prosecutor, who herself is a black woman, argued, quote, she had given birth to a biracial child that the defendant wouldn't allow to move back into the trailer, so that child had to be put up for adoption, and contending that Worden tried to convert Brandy to Mormonism so that a father could marry his daughters. Jury deliberations and verdict, trial court's comment, and agreed punishment. At the conclusion of the first day of deliberations, the jurors sent a note indicating they were split 6 guilty, or 6 not guilty, 6 guilty. That's weird, because when I said that it was 6 and 6 split, I was told by Dougie, the crayon fucking bandit, that I was wrong and I didn't know, and I'm a big stupid head, and it wasn't 6-6. So, fucking weird. Well, maybe the fucking attorney who's citing to the fucking record also didn't know. The trial court asked the jurors if they thought additional deliberations would help them reach a verdict, and again, they were split, 6 yes and 6 no. The trial court asked the jurors to return in the morning and told them that they had heard about 25 years of a dysfunctional family at best and a day and a half of testimony, then released them for the evening. The following day, the jurors returned and a guilty verdict was reached. I still think it's weird. I thought it was weird then. I think it's weird now that they went from 6 not guilty, 6 guilty to a conviction. That means 12 guilty. And I still think, although you could never prove it, that somebody got on the internet and started looking shit up. And they saw him and they decided that because he was a bad guy, that he should be punished for this, whether he did it or not. That's still what I'm thinking. Because you don't get, it's unusual to go from 6-6 to a guilty. It's more often that it goes the other way. Hung jury or not guilty. I don't think that 25 years of a dysfunctional family at best thing is really. I don't really think that the. I don't think that that's the biggest error that the court could make. I mean, there was evidence that a girl was pissing in a fucking pile of clothes. That sounds pretty fucking dysfunctional to me. So I'm going to say that they were living in a trailer with no fucking living room floor, pissing in clothes, cleaning their nails with steak knives, were splitting hairs over whether or not Earl touched her titty or full on fingered her. So Felipe is in here stumping. I really don't care about your opinion, Felipe. He passing the piss test. Oh, apparently it passed a lot of piss. Motion for a new trial hearing. Following the trial, Worden presented his motion for a new trial with supporting exhibits. So far, my initial the racial stuff is terrible. I think that is grounds. The religious stuff, the Mormonism stuff, I think those are his best grounds so far. But we'll see what we get. Following the trial, Worden presented his motion for a new trial with supporting exhibits, raising several issues. The trial court held a hearing at which it took evidence by affidavit and permitted the parties to make oral argument. Number 1, outside influences. Numerous active anti-fans of Worden attended the trial, including Teresa Richard and Douglas, the Crayon Bandit, Ripley. These individuals sat on the prosecutor side during the trial, and fans of Worden sat on the side associated with the defense. The court, the bailiffs, the prosecutor, and defense counsel were actively concerned attendees might try to influence the jury. The defense raised these concerns with the court numerous times. And there's a citation there. During the trial, the jury was walked in and out of the courtroom through the same doors that were used by the general public to enter and exit, and the jury used the same elevators used by the public. During voir dire, or voir dire, people say it all sorts of ways, defense counsel Dubois observed Ripley speaking to a veneer member. That's the Crayon Bandit. So defense counsel Dubois observed Ripley speaking to a veneer member. This was brought to the attention of Judge Yates, who presided over the voir dire. Judge Yates told the bailiff, who ejected Ripley from the courtroom. Ripley was allowed back into the courtroom during subsequent trial days, and attorney Dubois observed him near jurors coming and leaving during breaks and after trial. Now, Dougie Fresh, the Crayon Bandit, said that he was talking to the juror about horses or something like that. So it was all innocent, and I totally believe him because he's not a piece of shit. I'm lying. He's a total piece of shit. During a Tuesday break, John Gray. Is that the gadfly? Is that the gadfly? During a Tuesday break, John Gray observed Ripley and Richard in a hallway by the elevator banks in a heated discussion with another attendee. When Richard yelled that they were, quote, supporting a rapist and sex offender within earshot of the jury and loud enough to get the bailiff's attention. Tara Sieber, the significant other of David Jr., also attended the trial. Sieber was outside the courthouse and observed jurors leaving after the first deliberation day. She observed Richard cross Franklin Street and talked to two men she identified as jurors. It is the gadfly. I hope you're proud of it. You're a piece of shit for interfering in the trial. Following fucking jurors, you're a piece of shit, dude. Jurors reported that following the first day of jury deliberations, they were followed to their cars by the gadfly, who is a piece of shit and seems to be proud of it, who was carrying camera and recording equipment. Gray confirmed, that's the gadfly, confirmed he walked with the group of jurors while carrying his camera equipment and microphone, and then he walked back to the courthouse and he encountered a second group of jurors making eye contact and walked through the group. When Gray entered the courtroom, I walked to my car, asshole. You walked the wrong fucking way and then you walked back? You're a fucking piece of shit and a liar. Get the fuck out of here. When Gray entered the courtroom the following day, the trial court confronted him and the bailiff confirmed two jurors said Gray followed them. To my car. I walked to my car, asshole. Fuck you. I mean, just like, dude, if you're going to pretend to be a reporter, then why don't you figure out how reporters do it and not fuck with jurors? Dumb shit. Following the guilty verdict, the trial court recognized Gray's impact on the case. I'm not from Houston. I couldn't find my car. So you admit to being fucking stupid, not being able to remember where you park, walking the wrong direction, figuring out you're walking the wrong direction after you've walked with jurors in the wrong direction for like 10 minutes. And then you walk back to encounter another group of jurors. Congratulations. Your excuses just makes you look even stupider. Fuck. Yeah, that's a good point. The trial court, following the guilty verdict, the trial court recognized Gray's impact on the case, stating his friends had not done any favors with the jury. You got noticed by the court, you dipshit. The trial court acknowledged making these comments, otherwise absent from the record, in the hearing on the motion for new trial. The jurors appeared troubled by these issues, writing a note to the court asking that the court refrain from using their names. The trial court's comment that the jurors heard 25 years of dysfunction also served to be a source of outside influence during jury deliberations. Again, I don't know. The pissing on the clothes piles in the closet. You could just condense that to dysfunction. Trial court's affidavit. Trial counsel acknowledged he failed to object to the evidence of racial animus during the guilt innocence phase of the trial because he was caught off guard by the comment. Similarly, he recognized the prosecutor's closing argument regarding religious animus and stereotyping was improper. Trial counsel objected to the evidence at trial, but was overruled. There was no objection during closing arguments. Number 3, the trial court's ruling on the motion for a new trial. Following the arguments of counsel, the trial court denied Worden's motion for a new trial and discussed its rationale for denying the motion, which included finding, but there were numerous attempts to influence and intimidate a jury that I believe were absolutely unsuccessful. This was the hardest working, most diligent jury panel I've had in 37 years. They were attentive and intelligent. Wouldn't prove that. I can't bring it in here. It's not part of the trial. At the end of the case, Mr. Worden agreed to sentencing. I went back in the back to tell the jury of the outcome of sentencing because they thought they were going to do sentencing. When I walked in the jury room, I was stupefied to the point I actually took a video of what they did. My first video in my 37 years down here of jury work product. They had papered the room with giant pieces of white paper, different colors, charts, diagrams, a list of witnesses and dates to show the diligence they did over multiple hours of deliberation. Again, that's all irrelevant. It's what a reasonable juror would do, not what this specific jury did, or whether or not it would affect a reasonable juror, not what the specific jury did. Summary of the argument. Worden was prosecuted for a nearly 25-year-old allegation of sexual assault, where there was no physical evidence, no corroborative evidence other than that the Worden family lived in a specific trailer park, and where the complainant's allegations changed, were contradicted by other state's witnesses, and seemed implausible to have occurred hundreds of times, like she now recently claimed, over a 2-year span in a small trailer with 7 other family members home, but where no one ever reported seeing a single act of sexual abuse committed. That is interesting. Now, the jury can still believe the one witness and say, we believe her, ergo guilty. So it can happen. But that's kind of weak. I had thought that there was some other daughter that said that Earl had raped her or whatever. Also, so I thought there were like 3. I'm remembering 3. But one was like too young at the time to remember. Like one was only 3 years old at the time or something like that. I remember 3 daughters or something like that. Not testifying, but being interviewed or something like that. To get around the lack of evidence for the charge of defense, the state argued that the trial court counsel's opening statements to the jury opened the door to alleged extraneous bad act evidence. The state's argument succeeded, and the trial court admitted the bad act evidence over defense counsel's objections and his protestations that he had not opened the door, that the evidence did not fit within the open door, and that it was never a strategy to open the door to the alleged extraneous conduct. Worden presents that the admission of this extraneous bad act evidence violated the Texas Rules of Evidence 404 and 403, that any opening of the door to this evidence constituted ineffective assistance of counsel. Worden, a well-known police accountability publisher, had his trial attended by several fans and anti-fans. Trial court was aware and concerned with the dangers of outside influences impacting the jury. Those concerns came to fruition through the actions of attendees shouting inflammatory remarks within earshot of the jurors, following jurors to their cars, communicating with jurors, and even through the comments and remarks of the trial court itself. These outside influences brought to bear on the jurors violated Worden's right to a jury trial, his right to due process, and violated Texas statutory law. The state also injected Worden's trial with unnoticed inflammatory and inadmissible evidence of alleged racial and religious animus, having a black prosecutor present evidence and argue to the jurors, 4 of whom were black, that Worden would not allow his wife to live in their trailer home because she was impregnated with a black child, and that Worden refused to allow the black child into the home, but instead that the child had to be given up for adoption before the wife was allowed to return to the family, on account of the child's race and the contention that Worden was racist. The state compounded this with contentions that Worden was a Mormon and that he tried to get the complainant, his daughter, to convert to Mormonism so that he could marry her, suggesting to the jury that it's acceptable in the Mormon church to marry one's own children. These presented attacks on race and religion violated Worden's First and 14th Amendment rights, and the failure to object to this evidence constituted ineffective assistance of counsel. I think that's that last one there. That's the big one. I still think that's the big one. That's what she said, but I still think that's the big one. The trial court erred in admitting the extraneous offense evidence as, what time is it? 8:22. Ugh, we're only 39. Ugh. And if he did, the admitted extraneous offenses did not fit within the open door. He stated his opening brief. We've been over that. So the trial court found that counsel's opening statement that focused on the credibility of Brandy's story, aiming at the impossibility of approximately 600 alleged instances of sexual assault going undetected for 2 years in a small trailer with 7 other people, opened the door to extraneous offense evidence that, 1, Brandy witnessed Worden groping, touching, and put his hand up Jessica's skirt, which Jessica denied. Jessica was called into the room and told how to masturbate with a Coke bottle, which was alleged to have occurred a singular time in the direct presence of her mother and state's witness Sharon Worden. Over the several years that they lived in the trailer, Worden walked into the restroom while Jessica was using it on 2 or 3 occasions and immediately said, "I'm sorry," turned around and walked out. And number 4, Worden touched Jessica's leg mid-thigh while she was driving, telling her when to press the pedals of the standard transmission car. I'm just wondering if Jessica has learned to use a toilet again, or if she still But you can get caught off guard. I wouldn't have expected any racial things to come in. Like you can get caught off guard by stuff like that. Like where the fuck did the biracial child come in? Like that came out of left field. Where did the Mormonism come out of? I mean, you wouldn't expect that. Yeah. Texas laws will establish when other crimes, wrongs, or acts are not admissible to prove the character of a person in order to show the action in conformity therewith. Such evidence can be admissible for other purposes, however, including to rebut a defensive theory brought about in opening statements, but that extraneous conduct must be at least similar to the allegations of the charged offense. This is where they're going to go over, would you have objected immediately for the record? I would like to think that I would have, but I mean, he might have been conferring with his client at the time. I mean, something might have gone on. He might have had a brain fart. Like he might have just been so shocked that it got away from him. I mean, you know, hindsight's 20/20, and everybody can make a mistake. Even an expensive attorney can make a mistake. We have the benefit of having all the time in the world, having a written record, being able to go over it, you know, page at a time, yada, yada. When you're right there and you have to make a split second, you know, is this, number 1, is this objectionable? Number 2, what objection do I use? That's why like my standard operating procedure is I always tell my clients if they're testifying either like at a trial or for a deposition, you always wait 5 seconds before you answer. That gives me time to figure out if I should object and what my objection would be. It's not easy. So they also cite this case finding that touching the butt over the clothing is not sufficiently similar to penile penetration of the sexual organ that it logically serves to make it more or less probable that CE lied. That also an accused may not be tried for a collateral crime or for being a criminal generally, and extraneous offenses are inherently prejudicial and raise the probability the defendant will be convicted for his, quote, propensity to commit, end quote, crimes rather than, quote, specified conduct which is charged by the state. And yeah, that is the big concern. To determine the proper scope of the rebuttal evidence, it is critical to first identify what specifically is being rebutted. Trial counsel's assertion that Brandy's story lacked credibility based on the impossible likelihood that someone could be sexually assaulted hundreds of times over 2 years in a small trailer with 7 other people without any of those people ever seeing anything, no witnesses, no detection, no observations, no suspicions. The state's offered extraneous rebuttal evidence had nothing to rebut trial counsel's opening argument and were not sufficiently similar to the allegations of the charged sexual assault offense to warrant the admission of those extraneous allegations into evidence. I think Brandy's was pretty close. If you're talking about me, I have not been subbed to Earl in forever. So, sorry. If you're talking about somebody else, then. But the Brandy story about Earl groping Jessica, I think, under her skirt and everything, that might have been, that's getting close. That's similar-ish. The others, like the touching the mid-thigh while driving, and those aren't really close. Rather, the offered extraneous bad acts were nothing more than propensity bad act evidence. I think they were. In fact, two of these prejudicial extraneous bad acts supported trial counsel's argument, as those acts were alleged to have taken place out in the open in front of other people at the trailer, which is exactly what defense counsel said would be expected for incidents in a small trailer with 7 witnesses around, that someone would have seen something. In essence, such evidence was not rebuttal at all. It supported defense counsel's contention, but it still constituted harmful propensity evidence. So what he's saying is that defense counsel said that somebody would have seen something. And so Brandy's alleged evidence that she saw Jessica being taken advantage of by Earl was seen by someone, which is exactly what you'd have expect would have happened to Brandy's particular case. And Jessica's part about the Coke bottle was right in front of the mom. So again, someone saw it, and that's what you would expect. So that's what he's saying, is it supports defense counsel's contention, but it still constituted harmful propensity evidence. With respect to Brandy's alleged observations of Worden with Jessica, which Jessica herself directly denied, the purported groping and touching under Jessica's skirt is alleged to have taken place openly in front of other people, not repeated surreptitious sneaking through the house and into her bedroom in the middle of the night to engage in sexual conduct. The same is true with Jessica's Coke bottle allegation. This was alleged to have taken place a singular time in front of another person who notably did not give any testimony to support the allegation. Jessica's allegation that Worden walked into the restroom while Jessica was using the bathroom on 2 or 3 occasions and immediately said, "I'm sorry," turned around and walked out, also fails to contain sufficient similarity to the charged offense and is merely propensity evidence. I agree. There was no evidence to support or suggest this was intentional or sneaking around conduct that was aimed at being sexually assaultive conduct. I wonder if the holes in the bathroom, I wonder if that came into evidence. Now I'm wondering because that was like a big thing. It was making the rounds that Brandy was alleging that Earl drilled holes into the bathroom wall. You would expect, now that I know that it's a trailer home, you would expect somebody else would have noticed it. I'm assuming that it only had one bathroom because everybody's walking into it, and it's a mobile home. So it did not, says extra good citizen. Well, I don't necessarily trust you on that, but it'd be interesting to find out if it did or not, because everybody was all sure that Earl was drilling holes. I mean, I believed it, to be honest with you. Earl denied it. My gut instinct is to think that Earl's a liar. So I believed it, but I thought it was like one of his little like travel trailers, camping trailer. So yeah, I just wonder if it came in, or if that was just another story that was floating. Harm. The admission of these extraneous bad acts harmed Worden, affecting his substantial rights and having a substantial and injurious effect or influence in determining the jury's verdict. In assessing the likelihood that the jury's decision was adversely affected by error, An appellate court considers the entire record, including testimony, physical evidence, jury instructions, the state and defense theories, closing arguments, and important factors include the nature of the evidence supporting the verdict, the character of the alleged error, and how it might be considered in connection with the other evidence in the case, and also whether the state emphasized the error and whether there was other overwhelming evidence of guilt present. An analysis of these factors illustrates the introduction of the extraneous offenses harmed Worden's substantial rights. There was no physical evidence to support Brandy's nearly 25-year-old accusation. Detective Reed found no supporting records to corroborate Brandy's allegations. No police reports, no CPS reports, no forensic interviews, no medical records, no therapy records from the therapist she claimed to have visited and who would have had a duty to report such abuse, and no support group records from the group she claimed to have attended. That is so fucking interesting because I fucking remember the detective. Oh wait, cops can lie. So maybe that's it. Maybe. But what they got started on the summer. Something fucking started this ball rolling. So what was it? There had to have been something. He said that Reed found no supporting records. Like, what got this ball rolling? Felipe Hemming with the amazing insight that the jury found EDW guilty. They're not contesting that, you fucking fat idiot. They're contesting why the jury found him guilty. They're saying it wasn't based on the facts. It was based on this other evidence, the extraneous offenses, the stuff that sounds so fucking terrible unless you don't believe it or unless you actually think about it for a minute. Like he accidentally walked into the bathroom. Fuck, idiot. But something had to start this ball rolling. There had to have fucking been something on the shelf, because even Earl basically admitted to it. He said he said maybe he was just misremembering or rolling along with it or thought he could lie his way out of it because he didn't remember it. But he said that he did a polygraph on it. He said he did a fucking polygraph on it. So Earl was brought in at some point in the past and did a polygraph on it. So what fucking started this ball rolling? There had to have been some allegation somewhere of something. Maybe it was the titty allegation. I don't fucking know. But there had to have been some allegation somewhere. So there had to have been some sort of supporting records to maybe not corroborate her allegations, but to at least the titty twister thing might have been in a report or something. I don't know. There had to fucking be something. The testimony reflects that Brandy's story was also inconsistent and contradicted by nearly. Well, so school records, if Brandy had gone to school and said my dad had fucking raped me, the school would have reported. I mean, all the shit would have gone going, right? And there would have been something else to reflect it. And at the not deposition, at the interview that Earl allowed the officers to do, there's a Houston police report. So what he's saying, they're saying here that there is no police report. So it's fucking weird. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm getting lost on that, and I shouldn't. I should keep going. The testimony reflects that Brandy's story was also inconsistent and contradicted by nearly every witness, including the state's witnesses. Detective Reed confirmed that Brandy told him sexual abuse began when she was 14, and when she would have shared a room with her sister Jessica, and occurred nightly. Detective Reed also confirmed, backed by his recorded interviews with Brandy, that he never told Brandy anything about the statute of limitations changing, despite her claim that he informed her that there had been a change. Detective Reed shared Worden. Her mother also confirmed that Brandy never said a single thing about the alleged sexual assaults to any family member until Detective Reed's investigation began, contradicting Brandy's claim that she had told her family about this back in the late 1990s. Ultimately, the testimony reveals that Brandy gave contradicted and inconsistent testimony about where the sexual assaults occurred, when they occurred, who she told, when she told people, what people told her, and that the reactions of licensed professional upon telling them of the abuse was that they ignored their legal obligation to make a report. I mean, that could happen. It could happen that you tell a therapist something and they fucking shit the bed and they forget to report. It could happen. It's not impossible. The testimony also reflects that Brandy's story changed regarding the frequency of the alleged sexual results, that originally it was virtually every night when she talked to Detective Reed, but it whittled it down to 3 times per week when Brandy was confronted with the absurdity of her allegation that she was sexually assaulted roughly 600 times in a small trailer with 7 other people present, but no one ever heard or saw a thing. Brandy's story was similarly refuted by the testimony of defense witnesses Mark Kluver, Sonia Bauman, and David Jr., who were familiar with Brandy's reputation for credibility, who were aware she had denied that Worden had ever sexually assaulted her, and aware that the layout of the house did not support Brandy's contention that Worden snuck into her room virtually every night for 2 years. David slept on the couch, was a light sleeper, and could see directly into the lit hallway. The state's theories and arguments rested heavily on the alleged extraneous acts, and the state relied upon them heavily in its trial evidentiary presentation and closing arguments, discussing Brandy's alleged observation with Jessica, that again, Jessica herself denied. The Coke bottle masturbation allegation, the allegations that Worden walked into the bathroom while Jessica was using it, which made her afraid to use the bathroom, so she started peeing on a pile of clothes in her closet, and the allegation that he touched her leg when she was driving. The jury instructions further exacerbate the adverse effect of the alleged extraneous bad acts, stating the jury can consider those acts for the purposes of determining Brandy's credibility by rebutting a claim of fabrication or a lack of opportunity, even where 2 of those alleged extraneous bad acts were said to have occurred in front of other people. Finally, it should be noted that the harms of the improper admission of Detective Reed's credibility opinion, the improper racial and religious animus presentations, and the trial court's improper commentary should be weighed in conjunction with assessing Brandy's testimony. Worden requests this court find the trial court harmed Worden and improperly admitted the alleged extraneous bad acts, that the door was not open to those acts, and that they did not fit within the open door. Worden requests this court grant relief on this claim, find that his substantial rights were violated, and grant him any and all further relief to which he may be entitled, including vacating his conviction and remanding for a new trial. So again, if he wins the appeal, it just goes back to a new trial. Now, the question I would have then would be if the state would want to prosecute a second trial. They might not. Number 2, the trial court erred in admitting the extraneous evidence. Discussed and incorporated here too for purposes of brevity in violation of the Evidentiary Code 3. Generally, 403 favors the admission of relevant evidence. It carries a presumption that relevant evidence will be more probative than prejudicial. When considering a Rule 403 objection, the court's must pass 1, the inherent probative force of the proffered item of the evidence, along with 2, the proponency for that evidence, against 3, any tendency of the evidence to suggest a decision on an improper basis, 4, any tendency of the evidence to confuse or distract the jury from the main issues, 5, any tendency of the evidence to be given undue weight by a jury that has not been equipped to evaluate the probative force of the evidence, and 6, the likelihood that the presentation of the evidence will consume an inordinate amount of time or merely repeat evidence already admitted. So basically, it has to be more probative than prejudicial. Trial courts have broad discretion in conducting a Rule 403 balancing test, and reviewing courts will not lightly disturb the trial court's decision. Rather, it is only where there exists a clear disparity between the degree of prejudice of the proffered evidence and its probative value that the evidence is considered unfairly prejudicial and in violation of Rule 403. An application of the pertinent factors to this case warrants reversal, as there is a clear disparity between the degree of prejudice and the probative value of the extraneous evidence. First, the probative force of the extraneous evidence was to be for rebutting the assertions made in defense counsel's opening statements that Brandy's story was not credible because it was an allegation that seemed impossible to have been sexually assaulted every night for 2 years in a small trailer with 7 other people, and no one's ever heard anything. As discussed in Section 1 Supra, the presented extraneous evidence did nothing to further that rebutting trial counsel's claim, but rather were merely propensity evidence. What about defense counsel's impossibility and thus lack of credibility claim is rebutted by extraneous allegations that were alleged to have occurred openly in front of others, or by evidence that in 3 or 4 years a person walked inside a restroom 2 or 3 times and then immediately turned around and walked out and said, "I'm sorry," or touching of a person's leg, bit thigh, with no allegation of sexual misconduct ever being alleged by that person. The propensity value of the extraneous evidence was 0, and if not 0, marginal. The evidence did not bolster Brandy's credibility or refute an impossibility argument. Rather, it diminished Worden. Again, from what I've seen here, I tend to agree, but we haven't seen the rebuttal yet. The state does get an opportunity to respond. The damage was huge. Texas courts recognize that extraneous offense evidence of this nature does tend to suggest a verdict on an improper basis because of the inherently inflammatory and prejudicial nature of the crimes of a sexual nature perpetuated or perpetrated against children. And this is the context in which the state presented these alleged bad acts at trial and in their closing statements. Additionally, the state did not need the extraneous offense evidence in order to present the entirety of the case against Worden. Brandy's story and its inconsistencies and contradictions contain the allegations for which Worden was on trial. The extraneous offense evidence did not go to any elements of the charged offense or, as discussed above, to rebutting issues brought up by the defense counsel. Instead, the extraneous matters confused and distracted the jury from the main issues at trial. An inordinate amount of time was spent on these extraneous allegations, which were presented through 2 of the state's 5 witnesses. It could be like if so I have one that is monetized because I used music, and instead of doing a copyright strike, they monetized that video and they get the credit for it. It's the one where I've got God, what's that guy's name? Mexican Padilla. His wife was making a sob story about how they were low on money, and I played that sad violin music, and they monetized it, and now it plays ads. But I'm pretty sure that's the only way. I've heard other people say that non-monetized channels could have ads play on them, that YouTube can play ads on them. But I love watching non-monetized channels, and I've never seen an ad play on a non-monetized channel. So we'll have to. Someone will tell me that I'm wrong, but I've never seen it. An inordinate amount of time was spent on these extraneous allegations, which were presented through 2 of the state's 5 witnesses, and which was comprised of half of the second day of testimony before the jury, and which was the focus of a significant amount of the state's closing arguments. Finally, as addressed in Section 1, incorporated herein, Worden was harmed by the introduction, yada, yada, yada. Trial counsel's opening of the door to the prejudicial extraneous offense evidence constituted ineffective assistance of counsel. Okay. All right. To prevail on a claim of ineffective assistance of counsel required reversal of a conviction, an applicant must establish by a preponderance of the evidence, 51 in favor, 49 against, that number 1, trial counsel's performance was deficient, and 2, that this deficient performance deprived applicant of a fair trial. Under the first prong of Strickland, the applicant must show that the trial counsel's performance fell below an objective standard of reasonableness. Stated differently, the applicant must show by a preponderance of the evidence that trial counsel's actions did not meet the objective norms for professional conduct. Under the second prong of Strickland, the applicant must show that the deficient performance prejudiced the defense. Restated, this requires establishing that there is a reasonable probability that but for the trial counsel's deficient performance, the outcome of the proceeding would have been different. A reasonable probability is that which is sufficient to undermine confidence in the outcome. When evaluating a claim of ineffective assistance, courts consider the totality of the representation and the particular circumstances of the case. There's a strong presumption that a trial counsel's actions and decisions were reasonably professional and were motivated by sound trial strategy. Deficient performance. Extraneous offenses are inherently prejudicial when the counsel fails to object to numerous extraneous and prejudicial matters or opens the door to such evidence when it is not part of a legitimate strategic or tactical decision. Counsel is ineffective. This case found that no reasonable explanation for why defense counsel would open the door to damaging extraneous evidence. Trial counsel determined that trial counsel's opening statement, where he attacked Brandy's credibility by saying her claimed story of abuse was not possible to have occurred 600 times in a small trailer with 7 other people present without anybody seeing anything, opened the door to 4 extraneous bad acts offered by Brandy through Brandy and Jessica. It constituted deficient performance to open the door to such extraneous matters by directly attacking Brandy's credibility, the credibility and the sheer possibility of that inconsistent and contradictory story would be before the jury without his unnecessary and direct opening the door commentary. It was not a part of the sound trial strategy to have the open door to opened the door to the extraneous evidence, and the defense counsel himself recognized during the hearing on whether the door had been opened that it was never part of the trial strategy to do so, stating, quote, "I have not intended to open the door to the extent that I have, and it's harmful to my client. I'll admit that later. I just want to be clear." The state similarly acknowledged we were reassured several times by defense counsel that he would not be opening the door. This was consistent with defense counsel's statement just before jury selection. "I'll put on the record, I doubt we're going to be opening the door of anything, and I don't intend to." Worden requests that this court find his counsel's performance deficient. Okay, prejudice. He was prejudiced. By blah, blah, blah. Trial court erred in admitting the improper opinion testimony of Detective Reed. Yes, it did. Texas laws will establish under Rule 702 it does not permit an expert to give an opinion that the complainant or class of persons to which the complainant belongs is truthful. Yeah, that's up to the jury. Say the experts on child sexual abuse are not human lie detectors. In Yount, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals reaffirmed the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals is essentially the Supreme Court for criminal actions. It's the highest court that a criminal action can go to. Reaffirmed that such expert testimony, quote, does more than assist the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue, but rather it decides an issue for the jury. That's correct. Despite the prohibition of this type of testimony, trial court allowed Detective Reed to directly testify that he found Brandy credible based on her emotions and reactions to his interviews. Yeah, that's. I don't understand how anybody can believe that's not like a problem. I don't know if it's enough in and of itself, but I think it might be enough in and of itself to have to get a new trial. Worden was harmed by this error. Yada yada. Yep. The repeated outside influence is brought to bear on the juror, and juror violated his right to a fair jury. Texas law is well established that outside influences must not be brought to bear on any juror. In order to be entitled to relief based on outside influence or juror misconduct, the defense must establish that an outside influence was improperly brought to bear on any juror. An outside influence is, quote, something originating from a source outside the jury room and other than from the jurors themselves. Then, without delving into the jury's deliberations, evidence of the jury's deliberations are not admissible. The trial court must, I'm guessing, use or make an objective analysis to determine whether there is a reasonable probability that the outside influences had a prejudicial effect on the, quote, hypothetical outside or hypothetical average juror. So that when I said the trial court screwed up by saying what that jury did and that jury wasn't affected by it, it's your reasonable juror or the hypothetical average juror. As discussed in the statement of facts, yada, yada, they're brought to bear on the jury, including an attendee perceived to be associated with Worden, following jurors to their cars, communications and attempts to communicate with jurors by attendees openly against Worden, attendees shouting that Worden was a, quote, rapist and sex offender, unquote, within earshot of the jury. The trial court's mid-deliberation comments that they'd heard about 25 years of this dysfunctional family in 2 days, and the trial court's evidence that there was a lot of crazy stuff on the internet. See, they didn't bring that up in this until here. This is the first time we're hearing about this one. I've been waiting for this one. I was waiting for this one. This is like, why wasn't he hammering this? Like, this is a fuck up. This should have been up there with like Fuck that whole 25 years of dysfunctional family. This is what he should have been hammering on. Because once the court said there's a lot of crazy stuff on the internet about him, if the jurors were to Google him, what's the first fucking thing they're going to do is they're going to Google him. Why weren't you hammering on this? Oh, terribad. Those outside influences were impermissible. Mm-hmm. An objective analysis of these events establishes a reasonable probability that these outside influences would have had a prejudicial effect on the hypothetical average juror. Jurors being followed to their cars by a trial attendee, walking behind them, amidst them, and carrying a camera and filming equipment raises serious concerns about safety, privacy, and security for any juror. Particularly when the attendee has been perceived as being associated with Worden. Such concerns inevitably become aimed Worden's way, as the trial court itself made clear when it told Worden that, quote, his friends had not done him any favors, end quote. Worden ultimately became seen as being accountable for Gray's individual and unacceptable conduct. Yup. Attendees actively against Worden speaking to jurors outside the courthouse in a minute-long conversation that was more than just casual passing would also have a prejudicial effect on the average hypothetical jurors. The attendees were not there to help Worden receive a fair trial. One attendee was ordered out of the courtroom after speaking to veneer panel members during the voir dire, and the attendee seen speaking to jurors was also in the hallway outside the courtroom, shouting that Worden was a rapist and sex offender within earshot of the jury, to such an extent that bailiff had to come outside to address the issue. I believe that's how the SVU got involved. Yeah, I don't think he mentioned sex crimes, though. I didn't think he said he was going to fuck the daughter. So, and I don't think he was going to abuse the daughter or child abuse. I mean, he might have made a threat against her, but I don't think that's where Special Victims Unit comes into play. Trial court's commentary about the 25 years of this dysfunctional family would have a prejudicial effect. Their role in the process puts it at center. Yep. The jury and even the lawyers look to the court for the authority on everything that takes place in the courtroom. Their mid-deliberation commentary that the jury saw 25 years of dysfunctional family, particularly right before the jury went home for the day, makes any rational person wonder what caused all this dysfunction that the court just mentioned. Okay, I never thought that. But all right, sexual abuse. It also highlights and magnifies the state's presented case, including Brandy's testimony. The commentary prejudicing Worden came from the most authoritative source in the entire process of the court. Again, I still think that's weak. That's a weak argument, I think. The court's emphasis that there was crazy stuff on the internet about Worden also served as an outside influence, which would, yes. It is understood that the court has the responsibility and duty to ensure the jurors do not seek outside or consult outside information, but that responsibility and duty cannot extend to create impressions about what would be found if they were to look, or to present that such information would be found in what would be an appealing way. Yes. Moreover, the follow-up events make it clear the jurors were impacted by these issues. As the initial matter, at the end of the first day of trial, the jurors report they were evenly split, and half the jurors' indication that would be no good. They adjourned for the day. Then when they returned, they had been followed their cars by Gray. Additionally, the court's final note raising concerns about audience members and jury's privacy concern, considering the audience member shows that these jurors were impacted by these outside influences, same as any hypothetical outside average juror would be. Worden requests the court blah, blah, blah. Court erred in denying the motion for a new trial. I think so. I think the court did err in denying the motion for a new trial. Again, I'm not saying that Worden's innocent. I'm just saying that he should have a fair trial. Convict the motherfucker fairly, or don't convict him at all. And yes, I don't care about any of that. Trial court's remark about 25 years violate. I don't care about that. Trial court's remark about violate his right to due process. I don't care about that. We've been over it, basically. Injection of racial and religious animus. Yes, we've been over that. Is fair. That's just more deficient performance. It's the same analysis. Cumulative harm. Court requests the court find that the cumulative effects of the errors in this case be considered, and the court find that he's deprived of a fundamentally fair trial. A number of errors, even if harmless when considered separately, may be harmful in their cumulative effect, only if it rendered the phrase of the trial fundamentally unfair. He says it did. I could see how it could. And then the prayer, and then anything else. Proof of service, and we're good. All right. So I hope you got what you needed out of that. Thanks for watching. I hope Earl gets a fair trial. Have a good night.